book that I read this week that I'm just grateful exists in this world for me to learn from is called Stamped. Stamped was written by Ibram X. Kendi and Jason Reynolds. You might recognize Jason Reynolds' name. He wrote the book Long Way Down, which was probably our #1 checked out book this year. He's also written books like Ghost and All American Boys. Ibram Kendi he wrote a book originally called Stamped, which is about the history of racism. He wrote it for an audience of adults, but he recognized that it was a message that also needed to get across to young people. And so he reached out to Jason Reynolds, knowing how good he is at doing that, and the two worked together to remix this book called Stamped. And what Jason Reynolds writes is, this isn't a history book, or at least it's not that kind of history book. Instead, what this is a book that contains history. A history directly connected to our lives as we live them right this minute. This is a present book, a book about the here and now, a book that hopefully will help us better understand why we are where we are as Americans, specifically as our identity pertains to race. So if you're wondering where all of the emotion that you're seeing or feeling and experiencing is coming from, what's shared in Stamp is its history. It can be kind of uncomfortable to read at times, just like growing pains can be uncomfortable or learning something new can be kind of confusing and hurt your head, but it's so worth it. It's worth it to feel a little uncomfortable for a while, and you might want to read it a chapter at a time. And when you're not really sure what to do or say, sometimes it's great just to start by listening. And Jason Reynolds actually has a great audiobook of this title as well. We just got to keep learning, folks. That's my plan. And as Kendi writes, to know the past is to know the present. To know the present is to understand yourself. And that's what people deserve. I believe a lot of you are really going to enjoy this book, learn from this book, and appreciate this book, as I know I did. And will continue to do. Another story that I think you'll appreciate is the graphic novel trilogy March, which is John Lewis's story. And John Lewis is a congressman. He was also a key figure in the civil rights movement. And something that I think you'll connect with is that when he was a kid, he was a big comic book fan. And he happened to pick up a comic book by Martin Luther King Jr. And that played a huge role in how he chose to live his life. So March is about his experiences growing up in the South and how they led to, among many things, a big march in Washington in 1963 to advocate for civil rights for African Americans. The story is beautifully illustrated, and I was lucky enough to hear him speak in San Diego a couple years ago, and grateful that he continues to share his story for all of us to learn from. It's another one that I think you'll really enjoy. Here's another one for the Hunger Games and dystopian fans. Children of Blood and Bone was written by Tomi Adeyemi, who spent a good chunk of time living here in San Diego, which is kind of cool. If you like magic and fantasy and superstar young women taking down the bad guys, this might be a great series for you to start. The superstar of this book is Zaylee. She's from a place called Orisha, where there are magi, and those magi at one point had the ability to wield magic. Unfortunately, there was a king who decided not only to take that away when she was young, but took away the life of her mother. And when Zaylee becomes older, she meets with the daughter of the king, and the two of them, after a while, start to form a friendship. And Amari, the daughter, starts to realize that the life she's lived is not all that it's cracked up to be, and the two of them decide together to bring the magic back to Orisha. It's a really awesome series. There are 2 of the 3 out. You might have to wait a while for the 3rd, but it sure seems like it's going to be worth the wait. It's another dystopian series I think many of you will enjoy. Rick is one of our new stories on Sora, and it's written by Alex Gino, who wrote a really wonderful award-winning book called George. And in this story, Rick is the coolest, but his friend Jeff is kind of a jerk. And they've been friends for so long that he's never really questioned why they're friends. In fact, he's never really thought too much about why he himself does the things he does until he starts middle school and he joins the Rainbow Spectrum Club. And there he meets all kinds of different people who are so remarkably comfortable being themselves. And he wants some of that. It's a book for those who are searching for their place in the world and feeling comfortable in it. I think a lot of you will really love it. It is reminiscent somewhat of Wonder, and another sweet, positive, uplifting read to dig into. Here's another series for those who like The Selection or The Betrothed. The Bells is another kind of dystopian series that takes place in a place called Orleans. And in Orleans, people are born gray, and only from the help of a belle can they become beautiful. Camellia is a belle, but she doesn't want to be just a great belle. She wants to be the best belle. So when the queen selects her to be her belle, she's stoked. Until she quickly realizes that the queen's got some pretty big secrets going on that she's not really sure she wants to be a part of. It's got magic and romance and explores the obsession with beauty in a way that kind of reminds me of the Uglies and Pretties books. It's a sweet little scandal that will also bring you some really good characters, and I think a lot of you will like it. Yeah, this is another newer title available, and warning, it might make you cry. There are dogs in the story, and we all know when there are dogs involved, tears may follow. But it's really not a story about dogs. It's a story about Rachel and also Micah. And the two of them have been friends since they're about 6 years old. And when they turn about 14, Micah decides he wants to be a little bit more than friends, while Rachel doesn't. And in fact, she's starting to wonder how she feels about boys altogether. Meanwhile, her family is going through a lot. Her family may actually have to move out of their house after having some financial struggles. And so she's reconsidering a lot of what she holds valuable, what she holds in her heart, and what she wants to continue to hold there. Where the Heart is a beautiful, sweet, probably will make you cry a little bit story. It may make you feel lots of feelings, but I think you'll be glad you did. In Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky, we meet Tristan Strong, who at the beginning of the story has just lost his best friend. Unfortunately, the two of them were in a bus accident together. Eddie did not make it, and the only thing that Tristan has left is his journal. So in order to heal, his parents decide that maybe it'd be good for him to get out of town for a while and to go live with his grandparents and work on a farm. While he's there, one night, something kind of crazy happens. There's a weird creature that sneaks into his room and steals the journal. Tristan runs after him, they get in a huge fight, and he punches a tree and accidentally punches a hole into the sky that rips open into a new world. A huge battle ensues. It's magical, it's scary, it's also kind of funny because we've got some fun little sassy characters in there. And those of you who really like the Rick Riordan, Percy Jackson type books will appreciate the mythology and the history that's in a really great fantasy story. That the third Wings of Fire graphic novel is currently out. I know many of you enjoy the series, and the graphic novel is just as good. The third one was added to Sora just a couple weeks ago. I think a lot of you will like that one too. Miss seeing you, Waves. Love learning with you. Enjoy your week.